Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Hello, or should I good evening or good morning, whichever time you're seeing us. You got DanK here, and we got my friend Mike, and we're here to talk about cannabis news, and both good and bad. We're talking about freedom of cannabis and the use and the freedom to use it any way you want.
Except if you live in the United States, of course. An interesting story here, talking about West Virginia, a bill that would require drug tests for teenagers trying to obtain a driver's license. They would have to take a test 3 times for the learner's permit, for an intermediate license, whatever that is, and then for their driver's license, just to prove that they don't have drugs in their system. And this is, of course, by a G.O.P. trying to safeguard our children. They do a really good job of it.
West Virginia.
Well, yeah, moonshine country.
Yeah, that's great. And then they got a thing about drug testing. I always like to say there's only one group of people that benefit from drug testing, and that's the people that own the drug testing companies.
Yes, and they do quite well.
Yeah, yeah.
Along with the
a drug test, I've heard a drug test is simply being an intelligence test. You got to be stupid to get caught.
well, true, but they have gotten more insidious over the years, and now they have, of course, the hair test, which if you are looking for a job as a truck driver or any other kind of public safety issue-related profession, you have to say that you haven't used any drugs in a year, and then you're going to get a hair test, and if you shave your head, shave your beard, and they'll still find a way to get it from you. It's pretty serious, but they got the shampoos that you can use, but the only stuff that really works is it almost kills a head of hair. The stuff that actually works, because the way they do the test, you actually get the hair and they burn it because they want what's inside the follicle of the hair. That's how they test it. So you can shampoo it all day long, isn't going to do a bit of good.
That costs quite a bit more than a regular pee test, though. That would cost a person.
True,
for that
but
test.
when I was looking at getting behind the wheel of a truck again, I had a kind of a weak moment there. But all the companies told me that you had to make the statement, and then they would give you a hair test. Of course, you got to pee in a jar, but they're going to pick probably 1 out of 4 people to actually take this extra test. And since I have a record of using cannabis, I would probably have that hair test. So, but it's only good for really 90 days, I've told, as far as being accurate. So you can get 90 days out and hopefully get around that. But I'm kind of hoping in Washington, now that it's legal, that maybe just as long as you're, have the ability to keep it out of your system while you're working in the job would be good enough. And since we're not criminalizing marijuana use anymore, that they wouldn't have that requirement of being off it for a year, or being able to, pass a test that they say they can go out back in a year and look at your past usage.
I don't know how accurate those tests are, but I know pee tests. They say that they're 99.9% accurate. So we like to say, well, what about that one?
I was going to say, about a month ago, didn't we have a big case here in Oregon where that football player, I think it was, he got pulled over, and the Drug Identification Office was bound to determine that he was under the effect of cannabis. They did a test there at the cop shop, where they probably just had those cups that have the little piece of paper in there. They can do a quick check, and that said that he was positive. But then they did a regular purposeful lab test and found out that he didn't have it in his system at all. He just has made a poor choice to drive, 60 mile an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone. That's going to get the attention of somebody.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a huge industry, and I think it's got dubious results at best.
Oh yeah. It's anyway, it's I hear stories all the time. People trying to beat it, taking the test. Drinking the stuff from the smoke shop and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I always like to say, at one time I'm going to give up urine for a medical test to benefit me if I need it. But anyway, yeah, that's you always hear the different things from the different states, you know, and you just kind of scratch your head, you know. Got some holdouts, you know. And and then we were talking. We want to talk about too high to drive.
Well, that's kind of curious since we were both professional drivers, and
Plus,
we
talking about driver's license, West Virginia. Yeah, go ahead.
This is out of Mother Jones, and so now all the rage is to try to find out how, you know, field officers or how a police officer in the field can determine if you are under the influence or impaired, as they're using the word these days. So they don't have the same ease of being able to do this when a cop pulls you over. You know, they don't have a machine that they can do a field, you know, breathalyzer test, so they carry these things around in their cars now. They don't have anything for cannabis yet, but there is a company out there that I know that makes those diabetics use them so they can check their condition. You know, they sits there and kind of sticks their finger, gets a little bit of a blood draw, and it tells them what their counts are. Well, these people see an opportunity here. If they can come up with something that an officer can use, where you can kind of just stick your finger, it doesn't take a whole lot of skill to use these machines, and right then and there he can sit there and be able to possibly tell what your nanogram limits are if you're past that 0.5 nanogram for being impaired in Washington, since that's the state that only has a set non-defensible limit at this time. Colorado didn't pass that, but Washington did, and you'd be sure this is America. There's going to be somebody who's going to make a machine, but even still, their own scientists have trouble with this because different people, medical patients, will always have a high level of cannabis in their system, just by the very nature of the way cannabis leaves your body and works its way through. So just because you have a presence of it in your blood doesn't necessarily mean that you are impaired. And so now they're trying to figure out how they can safely come up with a way for people to see if you have if you're impaired. You know, we have cops here that, you know, the drug recognition officers. And so what some of these people are proposing is that if you have anything in your system, just like West Virginia here, that's going to be proof positive that you're under the influence. You know, here once again, the powers that be just ignore the science for expediency and doing a little bit of well, I think it's, you know, scare tactics.
Yeah, the 5 nanogram limit was a concern in Washington, and people thought that their patients would be liable for arrest at any time.
Well, absolutely. If you're a regular user, you're going to have elevated limits.
At 5 nanograms, it says, and let's see, the level is over 5 nanograms.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio and Nevada's limit is even stricter, 2 nanograms.
Right.
This rule, these rules apply to a public accustomed to drunk driving standards, and they give police a simple benchmark for making arrests.
Right, but as their own scientists, you know, prove out here, that these approaches don't account for what scientists know about marijuana's effect on drivers. The reality is that alcohol and cannabis are 2 very different drugs that affect people in very different ways. And once again, one's water-based, the other's oil-based. When you drink, anybody who has ever been to drug rehab, and I've been there, they'll attest to the effect that when you're drunk, it's your body is working very, very hard to get rid of that toxic substance in your body. When you smoke cannabis, not so much. You know, you can argue about the smoke, and that's for another show, but as far as the effects of the plant itself, the cannabinoids and the THC, you can't get a toxic level in your body. You know, so it goes to its various places, comes out through your kidneys, whenever, because your body, like I said, it's not a toxic substance. Actually, you have endocannabinoids that are looking for
Of course, it'd be called anecdotal evidence, but hey, Willie told us a long time ago in 60 Minutes, the TV show, he said if it wasn't for marijuana, I wouldn't have been able to quit the 2 drugs that were causing me the most problems, alcohol and tobacco.
Yep.
Yeah, it's right on national TV. I heard it.
Well, I gave up alcohol 25 years ago, and I'm not sorry I did.
Yeah.
You know, just for some people, it just...
I remember you telling me a long time ago that if you don't eat your cannabis, you have nightmares. That's still true?
Well, it's not so much I have nightmares as that I know when I'm not smoking, I remember my dreams.
Oh.
And of course, when I'm smoking cannabis on a regular basis, not at all. But I remember years ago when the last time I went through drug rehab, they gave me Paxil, and I took it for a few days. It was like taking LSD without the fun, you know. And then I had such vivid, crazy dreams that seemed to last a week. I've never had anything like this in my life, you know. And it was kind of interesting for a while, but then they kind of carried over into my waking hours. I'd wake up in the morning and I didn't know where I was. And I told the people at the drug clinic about this, and they said, well, that's a side effect. And I go, you know, the only bad side effect I have from smoking cannabis is you people. And you give me this pill that I found out later from different government people said, hey, I'm glad you quit taking that because that's a black box drug, and we don't want our pilots, for example, having any kind of contact with this stuff because they don't know about the long-term effects. At least they don't publish them, but one of them is that you'll probably develop something that you won't be able to to rid yourself with once you stop taking their drugs. And all these drugs, you can't just stop taking them, you know, because your body just reacts almost violently, you know, when you take away this substance that you've been putting in your head. You know, these things they put in all your synapses in your brain. I mean, I can't speak, I'm a high school kid, but, you know, it's scary what these pills do.
Oh, yeah.
Like the weed program the other night on Discovery Channel, one of its main sponsors was a company that makes these antipsychotic drugs that if you read the potential for, you know, side effects and then also, you know, long-term use will be known long-term use side effects is that anybody my age that takes this drug has a 1 in 4 chance of developing, you know, uncontrollable body movements and head movements, and you can just do all sorts of things that'll be brought on by this drug. You'll quit the drug, but you'll still have these symptoms, and probably for the rest of your life because you do so many, you know, unnatural things to the electronics in your brain. I mean, it's just obscene. You know, multi-billion-dollar industry, and yet you want to smoke a little bit of herb. You're an idiot, you're crazy, and you need to be locked up.
To me, how pathetic it is the kids of, I think they actually died with the synthetic marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
They can't get the real, can't get the real organic, the real grown, the perfect. So then they smoke the synthetic, and then it screws up their life. That's,
well, we've been lying to generations of kids about cannabis and other drugs, and so now in this pill-crazy world that we live in, the big thing now I hear on college campuses is what they call a farm party, P-H-A-R-M,
oh, yeah,
where they put a bunch of pills in a bowl, and you just reach in and grab it and just say, hey, I wonder what this one does. Don't take the blue pill, you know. But that's, you know, the crazy world we live in, and, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. And we're going to wrap up this segment, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
And now a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American Homegrown.
We're back, and we're here with my friend Reverend Will. We got DanK here on this side, and we've got some interesting stories. Willamette Weekly, the week of February 20th, had a series of different articles on the cannabis scene. And one in particular I thought interesting, titled Puff Puff, What Will It Take for Oregon to Finally Pass Legal Marijuana? These are different quotes from different people, and very, very telling. one of the first ones says, and I've already known this, but it's the first time I've seen it in print. One reason Measure 80 didn't pass in Oregon is that the big boys back east who put money into campaigns, Peter Lewis and George Soros, the organizations they help fund, aren't particularly fond of Paul Stanford, who backed Oregon's last marijuana legalization measure. Those guys didn't put money into Measure 80 because they don't like Paul Stanford. That's really unfortunate. I like Paul. If they had $1 million, it would have passed. It only lost by 3%. This is what quote of Philip Dowdy, spokesman for the Washington Cannabis Association and former Willamette Weekly reporter. And it is unfortunate, and Paul told me himself, even after donating thousands of dollars to NORML, they treated him badly. The politics of the whole thing is just unbelievable. I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't been seeing it with my own eyes. But
yeah, well, it's just like Mike was saying a little bit ago, where he was talking about us being thin-skinned in the medical marijuana community, in the marijuana community in general. I mean, whatever mistakes Paul may have made that has these guys upset, they couldn't see the bigger picture, and that was more important for their money to be here so that we could have that 3% and have it legalized. Hey, it's what everybody does.
yeah, and Paul himself is saying, we're going forward for 2014. Pro-pot billionaire Peter Lewis's associates are at the table with us. We're conducting polling for 6 different ballot models. We'd make the Cannabis Commission governor appointed. We'll set a limit on personal and private possession, just as we do people who brew alcohol and things like that. So that's part of the new plan of what they're going to do in 2014. My understanding is that they're going to, like I said, polling for 6, and they're going to narrow it down to 2, and then they're going to run 2. So see how that goes. Keep in tune. It turns out that when it comes to proposals to either decriminalize or legalize marijuana, the details matter. And there were some pretty substantial differences in the actual details of the measures seen in Colorado and Washington. Voters do check details. That's from Mark Weiner, political strategist. So yeah, anyway, it's really it's interesting times to see this transpiring. I just wish we had more communication. We have so much dysfunction within the movement. It's very frustrating, but we keep going forward with what we can have and go on. The guy, according to another Willamette Weekly story, Oil Baron, how Ganja John went from non-toker to Portland pot legend. And I haven't met this gentleman myself. It's Ganja John, but he's had a whole bunch of medical problems, and became aware of marijuana, got in, started to learn how to make tinctures and butane, what do you call the process? Hash oil, making the hash oil.
Okay.
Yeah, and he says, sure, the kidney transplant helped, but if it weren't for pot, the 27-year-old from Roseburg wouldn't have had the will to make it to the hospital. Afflicted by a rare gene deficiency which caused him to be born blind in his left eye and with an underdeveloped spine, Ham, not to be confused with the Mardi Gras actor of the same name, though his prolific beard, glasses, and burly frame, that's an unlikely mistake, already had one kidney fail as a teenager. 5 years after the surgery, on the eve of his wedding, the replacement organs started to go. He and his wife, Nikki, skipped their honeymoon to move to Portland and begin his treatment. Just recalling the pain he was in walking to and from the dialysis clinic makes Ham well up in tears. At some point in the 2.5-year process, he had enough. He was going to self-medicate, and damn it, anyone was going to demonize him for it. Damn if anybody was going to demonize him for it. So I told myself, I'm not going to let anybody make me feel bad for feeling good in my time of need, recalls Ham from his home in northwest Portland, dabbing his eyes with his shirt. One day before a dialysis session, he overpaid for a bag of low-grade shake, opened every window in his apartment, and using a makeshift pipe he fashioned from metal straws, got high for the first time. and I felt great, he says. Since then, Ham has branded himself something of a mascot for Portland's pot culture. He straddled the line between serious advocate and, well, what you'd expect of a guy who now goes by the name Ganja John. His voice rises with anger when discussing the ongoing prohibition of what he sees as the vital medicine. But he's not above giggling about the time his buddy came over and got so blitzed he threw up in every pair of shoes in the house. Anyway, he goes on about he helps people, and local guy out of Portland, and
well, you remember my friend Philip, who came in here 26 years. He's been on dialysis for the same kind of thing, kidney function, kidney failure, and he doesn't understand it. He's tried to talk to you. If you can't talk to your doctors, folks, and understand, I've talked to 2 people today. One of them was Philip, who talked to me about, talking to his doctor and getting what he got was bumped from doing dialysis in Eugene to having to go to Salem in order to do it. And another friend of mine was telling me that he went to a doctor that we thought was marijuana friendly in the VA, and the guy was retiring and said, nope, I'm not signing anything because I don't want to put my retirement at risk. So why, and understand for me, I always thought that the Hippocratic Oath was a real blessing. I really did, the quality of life that they talk about and stuff. But what I found out is that the doctors don't always go along with the Hippocratic Oath anymore. Ever since abortions were becoming so not so rare, more open, having clinics and stuff, that between that and medical marijuana, they really have this policy where they don't support the Hippocratic Oath anymore, because people in both those situations can be talking about how their life can be crippled by having a child, or if you're a pot smoker or somebody who vaporizes or uses it for food, you can lose your job. Once again, there it is. All of a sudden, you have no income. And how are you supposed to survive? And bottom line is, you can't trust these pharmaceutical companies and stuff, nor can you support the people who are getting you those drugs, because I saw today on TV a person whose drugs were costing him $17,000 a month. $17,000, and it must have been $1,700, but it was reduced down to $41 for all you folks who want to know how he did it. One of the ways was going to Costco. Did you know that you can walk into a Costco, whether you're a member or not, and walk right up to the pharmacy and get your prescriptions? And also, if you pay with cash, you can barter with them. Little bits of information, hopefully people can use that.
Yeah, I didn't know about the barter. I do know you can use the pharmacy, but I didn't know about the barter.
Yeah, if you're using the card, you can ask them if you can get it for less if you pay cash, and they'll check for you and see whether or not you can.
Yeah, it's worth a try. Wow, great idea, great tip.
So,
for those of you who have to use pharmaceuticals, hopefully you get to use herbs, though.
Yes, hopefully. It would be nice. So what's this about Leafer Madness?
Yeah, this is the third article that I picked up from Willamette Weekly on February 20th. It's called Leafer Madness, Beer Valley Brewing. Beer Valley Brewing's pot pun isn't so ridiculous. The hop flowers used to embitter beer are cousins to cannabis, and the two cannabesque have plenty in common when they're fresh and sticky. The beer itself, on the other hand, is an exercise in absurdity. Born during the so-called hop shortage in 2008, this Monster Imperial India Ale weighs in at a 9% alcohol and more than 100 international bitterness units. The threshold for bitterness, for tasteable bitterness, is hotly debated, but many claim the human tongue can only taste up to 80 IBUs. Even you can taste the extra 20. Leafer Madness, available at grocery stores like New Seasons, is overkill. The Eastern Oregon Brewery overused the most expensive ingredient in beer in a time of shortage just for giggles. The resulting brew is sappy green and resinous and little flavor beyond biting bitterness from a crab bag of what tastes like whatever assorted hop shake was lying around the brew house. Hard up hopheads will hit this, but I want better nugs.
Well, I can tell you personally from having tasted hemp beer that it can be made to taste really delicious.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, that's the point I think he was making, that they wasted the ingredients and trying to make
Well,
something.
didn't we have beer that was available at the, the Crossman Fifth Street Public Market? The place that we went to, it's a pizza place as well as a beer place.
Yeah, I don't know.
We went there for one of our meetings, and they had beer, but it was imported from California.
The hemp beer? Yeah, hemp?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't remember that. I do know that I've heard of it different times. There's also a company called makes hemp ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
Very expensive.
To me, I don't mind if it helps me to medicate.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
See? And to
It
me,
wasn't psychoactive.
here they are using it to make money and not help people. It sounds like they learned from the government. I mean, after all, that's our role model.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. And of course, it can be used so many ways. Are you experienced with hemp hearts?
No.
Hemp hearts are the center part of the whole of the hemp seed, and very nutritious. And we had a lady at a hemp fest one year that came around and actually gave out samples in salads.
I remember
and stuff.
that.
Remember, yeah. And that's an excellent product, very nutritious. Anyway, that's something that I want to look into for the hemp fest.
Well, maybe someday we'll be able to do the kind of testing and research that would make it most advantageous for us to use in the ways that it would be most useful. But until then, we just have to kind of wing it.
Yep, that's right. It's wing it. So, Reverend Will Wing It right here.
All right, folks, you
We're going to wrap
understand
this
that?
up, and we appreciate you coming by, and come by next week. And better yet, come by the studio behind Sheldon High School.
See how we,
nights,
see how we wing it
7:30.
there.
You bet. So
Yeah.
we're gone, and we're out of here. See ya.